You think your last name is just a label, something you type into forms and forget by the time you've closed the tab. It isn't. If your surname appears on the list I'm about to show you, then you are not simply Scandinavian by heritage. You are tied to a specific fjord, a specific bloodline, a specific god your ancestors swore by, and in more than one case, a specific voyage that carried your family across freezing water toward a coastline no one had ever mapped. 10 surnames, 10 bloodlines, and recent advances in DNA have done something the old parish records never could. They have traced these names back toward the men and women who actually carried them out of the north. Some of those roots reach exactly where you'd expect, others do not. By the end of this video, you will know precisely where your name stands inside the world that produced the most feared seafarers in human history. Stay until the final surnames, because several of them carry origins that were softened, disguised, or nearly buried as the old gods gave way to the cross. Your name survived that. The question is what it survived, and what your ancestors did to make sure it reached you. Let's begin with the first name, and a story that starts not with a raid, but with a single red-haired exile staring west at an empty sea. We start with a name that sounds almost too simple, Eriksson. In Old Norse, it is nothing more than the son of Eric, and Eric itself comes from the elements meaning ever, or alone, and ruler. The eternal ruler, the one who rules alone. A heavy name for a boy to carry, and the men who carried it lived up to it. Because the most famous Eric of all was Eric the Red, banished from Iceland for killing men in a feud, who sailed toward a frozen unknown and named it Greenland to lure others to follow. And it was his son who took the name further than any Viking before him, Leif Erikson, Leif the Lucky, the man who, tradition holds, set foot on the coast of North America some 5 centuries before Columbus was ever born. So if you carry this name, you carry the name of the family that reached a new world and simply sailed home again. The name is scattered now across Sweden, across Norway, across every place the Norse touched. But it begins with an exile and his son, and an ocean they refused to fear. The next name buried itself so deep in Scandinavia that today it is one of the most common surnames in an entire country. Nilsson. On the surface it means the son of Nils, and Nils is the Nordic form of Nicholas, from the Greek meaning victory of the people. But look closer, because this is a name that tells you how the North changed. Nicholas was a saint's name, a Christian name, carried into Scandinavia as the old faith faded and the new one rose. So a man named Nilsson is, in a sense, a walking record of that turning point, the moment the sons of Odin's warriors began taking the names of Christian saints. The name spread thickest through Sweden, where by the age of the Great Migrations, it sat among the most common names in the land. Millions carry it now, and nearly every one of them descends from that quiet collision, where the world of the longship met the world of the church, and a new kind of Scandinavian was born. The third name comes straight off the mountainside, Halvarsson. It means the son of Halvor, and Halvor descends from the Old Norse Halvarður, built from 2 words, Haller, meaning rock or stone, and Vorður, meaning guardian. The guardian of the rock warden, a name that sounds exactly like the country it came from, all granite and cold water and steep green slopes falling into the sea. This is a Norwegian name to its core, threaded through the western fjords where the land gives you almost nothing and demands everything. There was even a Saint Halvard, a young Norwegian who, tradition holds, was killed while trying to defend an innocent woman, and who became a patron saint of the city of Oslo. So the guardian of the stone became, in time, a guardian of the defenseless. If this is your name, your line was cut from the hardest rock in the north. The fourth name carries thunder in it, though most who bear it have forgotten. Sorensen. It looks like it simply means the son of Soren, and it does, but follow Soren backward, and something older appears. Soren comes from Severin, and behind that stands a far older Norse current of names tied to the god at the very center of the Viking world. Because to the people who bore names like this, the sky did not rumble by accident. It was Thor, riding his chariot, hammer in hand. Sorensen is one of the great Danish patronymics, blanketing Denmark so completely that it sits among the handful of names almost everyone there can trace. And Denmark is the old heartland, the launching point for the fleets that fell on England again and again, the kingdom of Harald Bluetooth and the raiders who made half of Europe pray for calmer seas. If you carry this name, your roots run straight into that Danish storm. The fifth name hides an animal underneath it, Björnsson. It means the son of Björn, and Björn is not a mystery at all. It is the Old Norse word for bear, the son of the bear. And to understand how heavy that is, you have to understand what the bear meant to these people. The most feared warriors in the Norse world were the berserkers, and the very word berserker is thought to mean bear shirt. Men who, tradition holds, wrapped themselves in bear pelts and threw themselves into battle in a trance so violent they felt no wound. To be named for the bear was to be named for that fury. The name runs through Norway and Iceland especially, and one of the great figures of Norwegian letters, Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson, who won a Nobel Prize and wrote the words to Norway's national anthem, carried the bear in his name twice over. If this is your name, the bear is in your blood. The sixth name was carried by kings. Haraldsson, the son of Harald, and Harald comes from the Old Norse Haraldr, from here, meaning army, and Valdr, meaning ruler, the commander of the army, the war leader. This was not a name for farmers, this was a name for the men at the front of the fleet, because two of the most important figures in all of Viking history bore it. Harald Fairhair, who, tradition holds, unified Norway into a single kingdom for the first time, and Harald Hardrada, the last great Viking king, a giant of a man who fought as far away as the Imperial Guard in Constantinople, before dying at Stamford Bridge in 1066, in a battle that many historians mark as the true end of the Viking-age. To carry this name is to carry the title of the men who tried to hold the whole North in one fist. Before I show you the last part, if you've ever looked at your own ancestry results and wondered where your Scandinavian line really fits, where the fjord actually was, I put everything together in a guide called Where Do You Really Come From? The link is in the description. But stay right here, because what comes next is the part most people completely miss. The seventh name belongs to a dragon slayer, Sigurdsson, the son of Sigurd, from the Old Norse Sigurd, built from Sigur, meaning victory, and Vorth, meaning guardian, the guardian of victory. But the reason this name matters is not the meaning. It is the man it points back toward. Because Sigurd is the hero at the heart of the oldest Norse legends, Sigurd the Dragon Slayer, the warrior who, in the sagas, killed the dragon Fafnir, bathed in its blood, and tasted its heart to understand the speech of birds. The same hero the Germans would later call Siegfried. So this is a name woven directly into Norse myth itself. It runs strong through Iceland, where the sagas were written down and kept alive while the rest of Europe forgot them. If this is your name, your ancestors did not just tell the great story of the North. They put themselves inside it. The eighth name is the most feared of all, and you already know why. Ragnarsson, the son of Ragnar. And Ragnar comes from the Old Norse Ragnar, from Regin, meaning the gods, or council of the gods, and Hair, meaning army. The warrior of the gods, the army of the divine. There is no way to say this name without summoning the shadow behind it. Ragnar Lodbrok, the legendary Viking king and raider, whose existence historians still argue over, and whose sons are far better documented than the father. Because the sons of Ragnar, the Ragnarssons, are tied by the sagas to the great heathen army, the enormous force that, tradition holds, invaded England to avenge their father and carved out Norse kingdoms across the island. Ivar the Boneless, Bjorn Ironside, names that still make the hair rise. If you carry this name, the sagas place your line at the head of the most famous army the Vikings ever launched. The ninth name is older than almost any other, and it runs with the wolf, Ulfsson, the son of Ulf. And Ulf is the Old Norse word for wolf, plain and complete, the son of the wolf. And in the Norse world, the wolf was everything at once, feared, honored, and woven into the end of the world itself, because it was the great wolf Fenrir, who, the myths say, was fated to devour Odin at Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. To take the wolf as your name was, to stand beside that terror rather than run from it. The element runs through countless Norse names and stands on its own as well, threaded through Sweden and Iceland especially. Warriors, chieftains, and outlaws carried it. If this is your name, your ancestors chose the one animal even the gods were said to fear. And now the 10th name, a name that does not roar like the others, but coils. Gunnarsson, the son of Gunnar, from the Old Norse Gunnar. And here is the twist. Because Gunnar is built almost entirely out of war. Gunnar, meaning battle, and again, herr, meaning army. Battle upon battle, war upon war. A name that is, in effect, made of nothing but conflict, stacked on conflict. But the man it points to is not remembered for slaughter. He is remembered for tragedy. Gunnar of Hlíðarendi, one of the central figures of Njáls saga, the greatest of all the Icelandic sagas, was famous as the finest warrior in the land, a man who could leap his own height in full armor. And when he was finally outlawed and told to leave Iceland or die, he rode to the shore, then turned back for one last look at his home and its pale fields, and said he would not go. That choice cost him his life, cut down defending his house alone. So the name built entirely out of war belongs in the end to a man who died because he loved his land too much to leave it. That is the twist the sagas left inside this name. Not a blade, a homesick heart. 10 surnames, 10 bloodlines, 10 corridors leading back through frozen crossings, burning longships, dragon legends, wolf oaths, saga heroes, and the slow twilight where the old gods gave way, and a whole world remade itself. And here is what the DNA and the old records really reveal. Your name was never just a label. It is a fjord. It is a bloodline. It is a set of loyalties that people rode toward, raided for, prayed over, and in more than one case, died defending. Some of these names began with a king. Some began with a bear, a wolf, a dragon slayer, or an exile staring west at an empty sea. But every one of them survived, carried across oceans by families who left with almost nothing and refused to let the name die with them. If your surname was on this list, then somewhere in your blood is a story that began on a cold northern shore and never fully ended. So tell me, drop your surname in the comments, and tell me which line your family carried out of the north. And if you know the story your family brought with them, the crossing, the country, the reason they left, say it, because those stories deserve to be heard. If you made it to the end, subscribe. Every week we go deeper into the names people carry without ever knowing what they mean.